Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel if you're new here. Hi, I'm Ashley and I am a new mommy of an almost 5-month-old son, and I talk on my channel about my experience as a new mommy and also some fitness related content. So today we are going to be talking about my labor and delivery story and my experiences with labor and delivery as being a mom who had an induction and an epidural. So a couple of different things there to talk about. So let's get on into it. All right, so first things first, I had a scheduled induction when I was 40 weeks and 1 day. I was in labor for 19 hours before I had my son, and I also did have an epidural. So I'll try to hit the high points, not make this too long. So went in at midnight on Tuesday, and I did not get the induction started until like 2:30 in the morning. So they inserted the Foley balloon and started the Pitocin to start my contractions. And I labored until like 8 or 8:30 in the morning, active labor with the contractions, and starting to dilate more before I got the epidural. I was in a lot of pain, as you can imagine, and I opted to do the epidural. I didn't have like a birth plan or anything like that. I was kind of just like, birth plans, you know, great if you have one. I don't want to be disappointed if it doesn't go the way I planned, so I'm just not going to have a plan. I kind of figured I would be someone who would opt to have an epidural if the pain got too bad, so I did opt to have the epidural at 8 or 8:30 in the morning. So I got the epidural, and by the time I was to the point of getting the epidural, I was in so much pain, like I was like, give me the shot. And so it's a pretty long needle. I'm sure you guys know all about that. It goes directly into your spine, and they actually leave a little catheter in your spine so that you can push a button and it sends more of the drug to like numb you. So basically paralyzes you from the waist down or wherever the epidural is inserted. I'm sure there's a lot of medical terminology that's correlated to an epidural. It basically numbs you from the waist down or wherever the epidural is inserted. So I think most doctors or most anesthesiologists do leave the catheter in these days so that you can continue to get more of the drug if you need it. So got the epidural 8 or 8:30 in the morning. Time is a little bit hazy. By that point I was about 4 centimeters dilated, and they pulled the Foley balloon out, and I just progressed after that. The epidural was a beautiful gift, and almost immediately, I mean, it took a couple of minutes, but that by the time they had got me from the side of the bed to like turn back around and lay down, I just remember laying there like arms wide open, flat on the bed, like, thank you. Thank you. Just like, oh, relief and just calm and peace and everything good. You feel so good after they give you an epidural compared to the pain that you were in before. So my immediate response to the epidural was, yes, this is the best thing ever. So things progressed relatively slowly and then fast, right? Most of the time that's how it kind of goes. So 8 or 8:30 in the morning I got the epidural. It wasn't until like 5 o'clock at night, so 8 or 9 hours, until I was like dilated to like a 9 or a 10. I don't remember the time exactly, just because it was just, you know, you're kind of in and out of sleep. Like you sleep for a few minutes and then you kind of wake up because you're anxious and you're nervous. So I was kind of in and out of it. I didn't really sleep that much because I had anxiety. I wish I could have slept because the pushing takes everything you have. So my son was born at 9:45 p.m. So I must have started pushing right around 6. So it's 6 o'clock-ish and they tell me I'm ready to push. They get the doctor in there because up until that point, no wait, that's not true. The doctor doesn't come in until you're like, baby is right there. So the nurses actually do all of it. Well, I had great nurses as far as like the labor and delivery part of my experience were concerned. I will talk about the other nurses later, but my labor and delivery nurses were fantastic. The girl who like was there when I was pushing was great. I feel like there's some misconception about epidurals because it's not like you can't feel anything. I was the one who was telling her that I was having a contraction, and then she would look on the screen and like validate it was a contraction. And then when it started to peak is when I would push. So it's not like I couldn't feel the contractions. Like I felt the contractions. It was just more of like a tightening, a tensing, and it wasn't so agonizingly painful. So I felt the contractions, and you push on the contractions. You push for 10, deep breath in and push for 10, deep breath in and push for 10. And then you take a rest until the next contraction starts. By the time you are pushing, the contractions are like right on top of each other. It's not like you're waiting 5 minutes in between each pushing period. Like you might have, I mean, it just, my contractions kind of varied. It wasn't like, okay, every 45 seconds you're gonna have a contraction. Sometimes it would be like 2 minutes. Sometimes it would be like 15 seconds after I had just pushed. So it's pretty exhausting. I threw up twice while I was pushing towards the end because you're so exhausted. You're just so exhausted. So I threw up twice, and I started to get nauseated at the end, and this part gets kind of hazy for me because I was nauseated and I had a fever of 100.4, and that was a little bit of cause for concern because the baby had been at kind of like the edge for quite a while. So I pushed for almost 3 hours, and the doctor comes in like right before the baby's born. I honestly don't remember how long the doctor was there for. Like I think they plan on just like catching, basically they catch the baby, you know, and they're there to stitch you up or whatever. She was probably in there for like 30 minutes or so. I don't really know. Time was kind of weird. It was harder for me to get Grayson out because little did we know at the time, but he was a big baby and he had a big head, and his head was too big to fit out of my body. So that's why it took so long to push him out. So they ended up giving me like a towel. So I held a towel and the nurse held a towel, and I like pulled on the towel to like push out. And we did that for a while, and after throwing up twice during pushing and having a fever and nausea and just like basically being half dead, Grayson was born, and he was obviously perfect. He cried just a little bit, and then he was calm, and we did skin to skin for an hour. He breastfed. It was kind of a blur to me. I do remember one thing in particular because, you know, like labor is different for everybody. It just is. So I just remember like after I had him, my doctor, once I had a couple, you know, minutes with him, she looks at me and she's like, Ashley, I am so sorry, but you had a 3rd-degree tear. And I'm like, what? I don't know what that means. And she just looked like completely horrified. Just like, you could just feel like the guilt like emanating from her. She just felt so guilty, and she's like, I am so sorry. I'm gonna have to stitch you up. So I had a 3rd-degree tear, which only happens at about 3% of vaginal deliveries. So it took her about an hour to stitch me up, and by that time, so I had pushed for almost 3 hours, and by the time Grayson was delivered, my epidural was like hanging on by a thread. I was feeling pain, not the type of pain I would have felt if I didn't have an epidural, but I was definitely feeling pain. And when she was stitching me up, I definitely felt the string being pulled through every time. It was painful, and unfortunately she didn't do it perfect the first time, and then had to undo everything and then re-stitch me up. And I just remember her saying, like, you need to, like, or the nurse said something about like the epidural, and she's like, yes, give her more. Give her more now. And so they kept pushing the button to give me more medicine from the epidural. So had my son, he breastfed. My experiences after I had him were pretty horrific, honestly. Maybe everyone has a different experience than I did, but mine was not good. They did not, like, they wiped the baby off. He was on me. We did skin to skin for an hour. They basically ignored the fact that we wanted to do skin to skin with Josh for an hour. That is something that I had requested. We didn't have a birth plan, but that was basically ignored. Josh didn't get to do skin to skin for an hour. I had a fever when the baby was born. The baby had a fever when he was born. Probably should have had a C-section just because of that. And nobody like cleaned me up. So once the doctor stitched me up, like, she left, which is fine. But then it was like a switch shift with the nurses. So it was a new shift for a nurse. The one who came in, like, did not clean me up. I was sitting in my own blood and all of that nastiness for over 2 hours. They pulled the catheter out, because when you have an epidural, you have a catheter. They pulled that out, and I'm like, okay, you know, it's been like an hour or 2 hours since I've had him. I need to use the restroom. Like, I've got to pee. And you are basically still kind of paralyzed from the epidural, so you can't really walk around. So I'm asking this nurse, like, can you help me to the restroom? And she's like just really giving me a hard time about it. And I'm like, what is happening? Like, are you supposed to be taking care of me? Like, and I'm just like so uncomfortable, because I just had a baby, and then also I'm like split open like a friggin' fish and sewn back together, and that's not comfortable. That's pretty painful to be sitting on that. And so I'm just like uncomfortable, you know, asking for the nurse to help me. I mean, you're like basically half dead. I was. After pushing for that long and being in labor for that long and having no sleep for basically 2 days. Because like I said, I went in at midnight. I didn't sleep the entire day before, just because I had so much anxiety about it. So I had been up for almost 2 days, and yeah, anxiety. The nurse was not helping me out. She did not care at all about my comfort level, my pain. She wasn't there to help me at all. And my family was pretty horrified. I kind of wish that they had requested a different nurse, but I don't think anybody knew what to do at the time. Also, they were overwhelmed by the new baby, and I just felt like I couldn't even, I just wanted to lay in the bed and hold my baby and be with him and be present, and just, that's it. And I feel like that was kind of diminished by the fact that my nurse was terrible, and she did not care about me as a human being, and she obviously didn't want to be there. And if that's the kind of nurse that you are, then maybe you shouldn't be a nurse in the first place. So that was my experience. as far as that's concerned, I was in that room for about 2.5 hours after I had him. We didn't get moved to our room until after midnight. I think it was like 12:30. Yeah, it's just a lot of miscommunication, a lot of nobody telling you what to do, what the expectations are. They kind of bark orders but don't really help you with anything. Breastfeeding was a huge obstacle for me and a huge struggle for me, and we figured it out when we got home because I was in the comfort of my own home and people weren't yelling at me all day every day about the baby needs to eat, the baby needs to eat, the baby needs to eat, it's been too long since he's eaten, it's been too long since he's eaten, why haven't you fed him, why haven't you fed him, like, yeesh. And that's the way the nurses were to me. They were barking these things at me and they were not helping me through them. Grayson, he breastfed right when he was born and it was great. He latched on great. But after that, we couldn't get him to open his mouth for anything. He wouldn't take a binky, he wouldn't take a bottle, he wouldn't take my breast. Like, how am I supposed to feed my son if he won't open his mouth? And you're yelling at me for 2.5 days that I need to feed him every 2 to 3 hours, and you're not helping me do it. So that was really hard. The nurses told me conflicting information. So I had a 3rd-degree tear, as I stated. And one nurse was like, you need to take Oxy and it's fine if you take Oxy. And I'm like, okay, you know, like, I'll take whatever for the pain. I don't have a history of drug abuse or drug problems or addiction or anything like that, so it wasn't something I was concerned about at all. And then my other nurse was like, you're absolutely not taking Oxy, it's a narcotic or something, I don't know. You're absolutely not going to take that, you can't take that, you get Tylenol. And I'm like, okay, like, this is not Ashley in her full self, okay? This is dead, tired, beaten down, kick the crap out of Ashley who's like bloody and just exhausted. I mean, you're going on 2 days, 2.5 days, 3 days without sleep. You're getting 30 minutes of sleep here, 10 minutes of sleep here. I remember at one point, Wednesday morning, so I had him at 9:45 Wednesday night. I had him at 9:45 Wednesday night, and then Thursday morning at 5 a.m. I finally dozed off. Okay, I finally dozed off, and my mom and Josh were in the room, and we were all kind of like about to doze off. So 5 o'clock in the morning, I doze off. I wake up at like 5:15 with a needle in my arm and someone is drawing blood from me, and I'm like, what is happening? Like, shouldn't I be awake for you to be doing anything? But I was so out of it, like they were drawing blood and I'm like, what's happening? And then I kind of dozed back off, and at 5:45 my nurse barges in the room and is like, why haven't you fed the baby? You need to feed the baby. It's been too long since he's eaten. And I'm like, first of all, how do you guys know how long it's been since he's eaten? Nobody has asked me when he's eaten. And I don't remember exactly how many times he ate after I gave birth to him. But they just assumed that I hadn't fed him, and I don't remember if I did or not, honestly. But they were like, why haven't you fed him? And all of just like yelling at me and badgering me and bullying me. And I'm like, okay, help me. It was at that point that we realized like he wouldn't open his mouth. So that first full day was rough because I got like 45 minutes of sleep. And then I didn't get to sleep again until that night. You should have seen me. I look like a dead raccoon. I mean, black, just black eyes, dead, exhausted. And you have this vision of what your labor and delivery is going to be like, and then afterwards, and it was just not that for me at all. I didn't have the support. Nobody told me beforehand like how structured breastfeeding needed to be, and I just really struggled, and I didn't have great nurses. Nobody was supportive. That second day, I didn't really have like a breakdown, but we had a nurse who had been a nurse for like 30 years or something, and she was the one who was opinionated about the oxy. But I kind of was like over that at this point, because I'm like, listen, I can't get him to open his mouth. Please help me. You've been doing this for so long. Like, please help me. I don't know what to do. And so she was in the room with him. She held him for like 45 minutes. And finally, she got him to like open his mouth and drink like 12 mils from the bottle. We opted to do donor breast milk at the hospital instead of formula, because I thought at the time that I was going to be exclusively breastfeeding and I didn't want him to have formula. That's a whole other story. My mindset has definitely changed on that. But at the time we wanted him to have just breast milk. So we did donor breast milk in the form of a bottle. And I was trying to breastfeed and pump as well at the hospital. So anyway, she was in there for like 45 minutes and finally got him to open his mouth, and he took about 12 mils. And then after that, like, she kind of showed me different techniques to like try to pry his mouth open to get him to drink, so that he would understand like he's being rewarded. This is a good thing, you're being fed, because he doesn't know any better. He didn't have to do that before. So she kind of taught me that, and we did okay with feeding. I, like most moms, struggled with him latching properly and staying on. I had produced a decent amount of colostrum. My milk came in like 5 days after I had him, which, like, I feel like people know that it doesn't come in most of the time while you're at the hospital, but it's like, what are you supposed to do if you don't have any milk? So like, we use a lot of donor breast milk at the hospital just because I'm like, he's got to eat. There's not enough coming out of me to feed the baby. One of the hardest things with the breastfeeding was just the routine of it. I didn't understand until after we came home, and like weeks later, like, this is what we should have done. It should have been much more structured. We had family. We love our families, and we didn't, you know, most of them listen to our wishes as far as what we wanted, and visitors and that kind of thing. But it was like a revolving door, and that made it very hard to breastfeed and feed, because people wanted to see the baby when they were in there. They wanted to hold the baby, and so this would go on for like hours on end, and I'm like, it really is hard to stick to a structured routine with feeding when it's a revolving door. So next time I would definitely be more strict on our visitors. We've talked about it because we do want more kids, and next time I think we'll probably have like a morning period and then like an afternoon or evening period where that's like an hour where people can come and visit. Doesn't matter who you are, doesn't matter. Your friend, your family, your grandma, your grandpa, I don't care who you are. Next time we are doing like an hour in the morning, an hour in the afternoon or evening where people can come in, say hi. I was not, and I still would not be comfortable breastfeeding in front of people. And you're in the hospital when you're feeding, your boobs are just like out all the time. So it's one thing for medical professionals to see it and another thing for family and friends. So that kind of threw off our feeding routine as well. One other thing that I was not prepared for was the swelling. So I had swelling in my 3rd trimester. I think I started at like 27 weeks, just my ankles and feet. And then towards the end, it kind of got to my calves. It wasn't too terribly bad, but it was definitely noticeable. I only had 1 pair of tennis shoes that I wore to work every day. And that was it. I thought that would go away when I had baby. Oh my God, so wrong. I was so wrong. Because of all of the fluids that they give you and the epidural that I had. While I was in labor, Josh's sister Jess was like, oh my God, Ashley, look at your feet. And I was like, what? And my feet were swollen. And I was like, oh, that's gross, but you know, oh well. By the time I was going home, my feet were so swollen that I couldn't fit them into like anything. I basically shoved them into the slippers that I had, but they were definitely too small. I remember getting into the shower at the hospital the second or third day, and the flip-flops that I brought, I had to like squish down my feet to get my foot into the flip-flop, and I was just like, oh my god, oh my god. So, little tip for you. If you're going to have fluids, which you probably will, or an epidural or a combination of the both, or if you had swelling during a pregnancy, girl, bring some big ass shoes. I just, my feet were so swollen, and I, like, next time I'll have to buy like some mega big flip-flops or like sliders next time maybe that are like too big, so that I can shower with them on. I mean, I still wore them, but they were like squishing my feet down. I definitely didn't want to go home in slippers that like barely fit. Like they were, my feet were like squishing there like sausages. So definitely next time I will be bringing some big shoes. That's a whole other thing, but overall my hospital stay was pretty terrible, and I just remember thinking, oh my god, I just want to go home. I just want to go home. I just want to go home. As I mentioned, I had a 3rd-degree tear with my son. He was 9 pounds 6 ounces. And I had to ask a nurse to check my stitches. Like, it's not something that they just did. And I'm just like, okay, like, don't you want to make sure that they look okay? It was just, there was no concern for me as a human being. The baby has a nurse, you have a nurse, you have a PCA, and then there's random other people that are like in and out always. And they had good intentions as far as like, the baby needs to eat, you need to take care of the baby. Great, help me do that. There was just such a lack of like telling me how, right? Especially for first-time mom, like we don't know what we're doing, okay? It's rough. It's not like we're even our normal selves too, who can think clearly and make decisions. You did, and you're not yourself. So it would have been nice for someone to say, okay, I know you're a first-time mom, you're planning on breastfeeding, it's going to be hard. I'm here to support you in whatever you need. We need to try to feed the baby every 2 to 3 hours. If you need help feeding the baby every 2 or 3 hours, like press a button, I'll come in here and help you. Would that have been hard to do for a nurse? Like, I'm not a nurse, but if I was, that's what I would do for somebody who is a new mom. Especially the nurses who have kids. Like, they were brutal. The nurse that I had before I was being discharged, I had breastfed him, and it was like an okay feeding. It got cut off because we had a visitor, and he started to like get a little fussy and was like rooting around, and I was like, oh my god, I think he's hungry still. And we had packed everything up, and we were getting ready to go, and I talked to the nurse, and I was like, I think he's still hungry. Can I get some like donor breast milk for him? And she's like, what makes you think he's hungry? And I was like, oh, he's just telling you, like, he's giving me signs. Sorry guys, my camera got overheated and I had to take a quick break. Basically what I was saying was that I asked the nurse if I could have some donor breast milk for him because I felt like he was hungry. She didn't feel like he was hungry, and she said to me, what are you gonna do when you get home? And I was like, oh my god, that is so mean. Why would you say that to a new mommy? And she herself had 3 kids, so I was just kind of shocked that she would treat me like that. And then I was just like, I don't know what I'm gonna do when I get home. Nobody's prepared me for this. Anyway, that's my labor and delivery story. Grayson, hello, is perfect, and he's beautiful, and he's so healthy, aren't you? We obviously figured out how to feed you, didn't we? Didn't we? He likes to look down. He was 9 pounds and 6 ounces, and then by his 2-week appointment, he had gained back all of his weight plus some more, and we did supplement with formula, and he is almost 5 months old now, and he is strictly formula fed, just due to my low milk supply. I will talk about my breastfeeding experience in another video, but that is my labor and delivery experience. I obviously would do it all over again to get my sweet angel baby here. But that is all I wanted to talk about. Even if you have the worst experience in the world, you get to go home with the biggest blessing, and it's honestly just such a miracle that we get to create this life and teach them how to live and how to survive and to grow up to be big and strong. And even if you have the worst experience in the world, it's just a blessing. I will do things differently. I will stand up for myself better next time. I will not be bullied by the nurses next time. And I will also have a better idea of what to do next time, as far as like how to take care of a baby and to raise a baby. Look, what are you looking at? What is over there? Is that your toy? Oh my goodness. Is that your fun chair? Oh, what is it? Huh? Alright guys, I'm gonna go ahead and end this video here. Thank you for watching, and I hope it didn't put too much of a damper on your day. Have a good one. Bye. You say bye? We are distracted, aren't we?